Welcome back everyone to another MCAT ACE lecture. In today's lecture we are going to discuss the nervous system. In particular, we will focus on the organization of the nervous system, discuss how it will divide into the central and the peripheral nervous system, and how peripheral nervous system will further divide into other branches. We will discuss different cells of the nervous system, which includes neurons and the glial cells. We will discuss the reflex arc and how it will allow us to quickly respond to painful stimuli. We will go over the somatic nervous system as well as the autonomic nervous system. And in particular, we will discuss the two important branches of the autonomic nervous system, which includes the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. We will discuss structure of the nerve cells in terms of their cell bodies, dendrites, and axons. We will discuss how a neuronal impulse is being transmitted along the axon as well as across a synapse. We will discuss the difference between excitatory and inhibitory neurons, discuss the concept of firing frequency and refractory period, and then finally discuss integration of the nervous system with the endocrine system. Alright, so now let's start with the organization of the nervous system. So basically the job of the nervous system is to monitor the body and to maintain its homeostasis by responding to fluctuations in the internal and the external environment. And this job is being accomplished by different divisions of the nervous system. So the two main branches of the nervous system are the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system further divides into two other branches, which includes the brain and the spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system, on the other hand, is divided into the sensory and motor pathways. The other name for sensory pathway is afferent pathway or afferent neurons, while the other name for motor pathway is efferent or effector neurons. Now the motor pathway itself is divided into somatic nervous system, like for instance our skeletal muscles that are under our voluntary control, and the autonomic nervous system, which is not under our conscious control, and these include the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, and we will discuss these two autonomic systems in further details. But sympathetic nervous system is also known as fight or flight response, while the parasympathetic nervous system is known as rest or digest response. Next, moving on to different cell types in the nervous system. So the nervous system has two cell types. One is neurons, which are basically specialized cells that respond to various physical as well as chemical stimuli in order to conduct electrochemical signals and release neurotransmitters. And there are three main types of neurons. Number one is sensory neurons, or the other name for which is afferent neurons. And these neurons will gather the information and transmit them to the central nervous system. Next, we have the interneurons, which are located in the central nervous system, and they function as a link between sensory and motor neurons. So they are the link between sensory and motor neurons. And then finally, the last type is the effector or efferent or motor neurons, the function of which is to relay information to the effector tissues, like such as muscles and glands. So it will affect muscles and glands and other tissues. Alright, now the second type of cells in the nervous system are glial cells, and basically the function of glial cells is to support neurons. They will provide supporting framework, they would remove waste products, they would provide nutrients, and they would defend against infections. So basically they would support neurons in multiple different ways. And so let's go over different types of glial cells that we have. Number one is oligodendrocytes, which will myelinate the central nervous system, like brain and the spinal cord. And two is the Schwann cells, which would again myelinate neurons, but basically it will focus on neurons that are in the peripheral nervous system. The other type of glial cells include microglia, which are basically phagocytic cells that will ingest and break down different debris as well as pathogens. So it will help fight pathogens. The next type of cells are ependymal cells, which line the brain ventricles, and its function is to produce cerebrospinal fluid, which acts as a shock absorber. And the last type of glial cells are astrocytes, which are basically star-shaped glial cells that provide physical support as well as nutrients to the nerve cells, and it also forms the blood-brain barrier in order to control transfer of molecules from the blood into the brain. Next, we are going to discuss the reflex arc.